This video is an introduction to the Content File Editor in DocumentX 2010. The Content File Editor allows you to work with DocumentX content files, and content files are a way for you to extend and embellish the automatically generated reference content that DocumentX produces. So I'm going to illustrate how that works in practice in our .NET sample project here. And if I look on the Project Explorer under the Content Files section, I can see that I have a single content file in this project for the RSS Reader sample component. And if I double click that content file entry, it'll open up the Content File Editor for me to work with. Now the first thing to note here is there are two main sections to the Content File Editor. The section on the left is the tree-based view of the item that I'm producing this content file for. So in this case it's a .NET assembly, and I've got an assembly node, and I can drill down through the namespaces and the types that are below that, and below the types I have methods, properties, fields, events, so on and so forth. So I can select any item in my component here, and on the right hand side the page for that component will appear with editable sections within it to allow me to create and edit content for that particular item. So I've already got some content in this particular class in the summary section here, and I can extend that to add new paragraphs, embed other items of content as I wish. The toolbar that's along the top of the editing area here gives me access to the different pages that are generated for this item that I've got selected. So for a class we have the overview page, which is the one we're viewing at the moment, that's generated, but we also have the members page, the events page, fields, methods, properties page listed across the top here. So this means that I can easily switch to view and edit the content within those particular page types that are generated for this item. So this is a great way, particularly for members, it's a great way to get an overview of what the descriptions that are going to be generated for each of those members of the class are going to be. So for example, under my properties section here, I can see all of my properties of this class. These grey areas of text that appear just above my editable sections for the individual properties, they give me a preview of what the XML comment that I put in my source code is. And that's great for editing because it allows me to make a judgment on whether the XML source comment is good enough to serve the purposes of documentation, or whether I need to provide an additional description or perhaps override that with something specific in here. So I can scroll down and view my entire list of properties, methods, events, so on and so forth. So I can switch between the different page types here, but what I can also do is switch to editing just a particular section of the content. So for example here I can switch to just the summary content. The way in which that's really useful is it means I can switch to source mode, and I can edit the actual HTML source for that particular area and preview that area independently of the overall page layout in which it appears. So the individual editors that appear along the rest of this section here, many of them are HTML based editors for editing regular textual content, but some of them are specific designers. So for example, I have an isNew designer here for recording the date in which this item was added, and I also have stuff like diagram exclusions designers. So these are specific designers for particular types of content. So I'm going to switch back to full page edit now just to illustrate a couple of the filtering features that we have within the content file editor here. One thing to note is that the items that we see, by default, the items that we see in the content file editor follow the items that you have ticked for inclusion within this documentation set. So if I remove one of those items on the Project Explorer, we can see that it gets hidden and shown within the content file editor automatically. So you should only see in here by default the items that you're interested in creating documentation for. Beyond that, we can filter the members that appear under the types in the Content File Explorer here. So we can include friend members, we can include private members. By default those are hidden because they're not members that you would normally be producing documentation for. So as an example, I've got some private fields here that I could be attaching documentation to if I was going to be including those in the documentation set that I was producing. One thing you might find yourself having to do if you have a particularly large assembly is finding a particular member in order to create documentation for it. And we make that easy through the find bar on the Content File Explorer here. So if I click that, it will drop down a search box, and let's search for the word feed, and that will find the first instance of that particular word, and then I can trot through finding the subsequent instances of that word and then just hide away the find banner once I'm done. So that's a really quick and easy way to find particular members, types or other items in the Content File Explorer. One thing you might have spotted if you've had a look around the Content File Editor is that some of the section headers here have the New button right next to them, and this provides a really quick and easy way that's an alternative to using the individual content item type pages on the toolbar above the content editing area here. Provide a really quick and easy way to create new items of a particular type. So for example, if I want to create a new entry in the permissions table for this particular type, I can just click on the toolbar button and it will bring up a designer for that item. So I'm just going to select a particular type of permission that this class requires, and you can see that appears in the permissions list down the bottom here. So we can do that for a number of different types. We can do it for permissions, exceptions on member pages, example code, and also see also links is quite a common one to want to create links between members in my documentation. So by and large, most of the things that you may want to author for a particular page are usually there right in front of you within the first page of the content file editor here, and you can switch to these secondary pages for some of the items, such as the diagram exclusions editor, that don't have a particular means of editing directly within the page here. So that wraps up this short introductory video to the Content File Editor.